Sister's constant presence and provocative behavior around my husband is raising red flags, and everyone dismisses my concerns as overreaction. My husband James, 34 male, and I, 29F, were neighbors growing up. My sister, Fran, 34F, was in the same grade as my husband growing up. Everyone knew my sister in school because she is very smart and beautiful. James had a huge crush on her and all of us knew about it. He asked her out for senior prom and Fran shot him down, in front of the whole school. They still remained friends, but he moved to a different state for college, and we did not hear much from him, except see him when he came back for holidays. James and I were never friends growing up, since I was in middle school when this happened. In fact, I was much younger than both of them, and they would actively avoid me or involving me in their hangouts and activities. I went to a good college and got my first job in the same city as James. My mom suggested I should contact James, since I did not know anyone there. We became friends and 3 years later, we got married. We both have high-paying jobs and love our life. We moved back to our hometown during COVID as James's mom had health issues, and our jobs allowed us to work remotely. Fran also had a pretty good life. She married when she was 23 and her husband was pretty well off. 2 years ago, Fran discovered that he was cheating on her for almost the entire duration of their marriage with multiple partners and she decided to break things off. Fran moved back with my mom. Fran had not worked for the entire duration of their marriage and was expecting to gain significant alimony from the divorce. However, due to complications regarding prenup, she barely got anything and is struggling financially. She got a job but is barely able to afford her own place and continues living with my mom. James and I were very supportive of her during the whole process. Since James and Fran were friends growing up, they both have a special bond. They have their inside jokes and stories, and I sometimes feel like a third wheel when we all meet. However, James keeps his distance and has never given me any reason to believe that he has lingering feelings for her. Fran, on the other hand, constantly visits us, like 2 to 3 times a week, and ends up staying for dinner and sleeping in our guest room. I don't mind her coming over, but I do not like the fact that she talks more to James than with me. Also, she always comes over when I am not at home, and I often find them sitting next to each other on sofa and watching TV when I get home. It sort of reminds me of my childhood where I was locked out of our basement when Fran had friends over, and I would feel left out. Fran is also too comfortable around James and walks around the house in just a towel after her shower when James is around, or sleep in her underwear in guest room without locking the door. I have voiced my concerns to her, but she says that we are family, and she does not care. I have also voiced my concerns to James, and he does make efforts now to explain stories and inside jokes if Fran makes them. The main issue happened this weekend. I was hanging out with my mom and Fran last weekend and Fran was recollecting stories about how James would do her homework and do chores for her growing up. She said he was so much in love with me, and I felt guilty taking advantage of him. My mom jokingly said to her that I wish you had the wits to marry James than your loser husband and you would have not been in this situation. Fran smiled after hearing that and nodded, but I was hurt by the comment. I protested to my mom that James is my husband, and I do not want her to make such comments about him. My mom doubled down and said that she feels like it because both James and I are high earners, while Fran is struggling. So, it would make sense if Fran was married to James, and I would be fine since I do not need James to support me financially. She kept on saying that it was a hypothetical, and just wants both her daughters to be happy. I did not like those comments and told them to not speak like that about James and my marriage in general. Fran chimed in and told me that I should not take the comments so personally, and I am being too sensitive. However, I had a fight with both of them, and I left. When I came home, and told James, he also sided with my mom and Fran and told me that her mom just made a harmless joke. I also raised the issue of Fran's behavior around our house, and he told me that this is between me and my sister, and he is not going to tell Fran about what she can or cannot wear in our house. However, I am just feeling really bad since the situation and despite everyone apologizing to me, things just don't feel right. Am I wrong here in reacting the way I did, or does everyone else have a point, and I should be more secure about my relationship with James? NTA, your mother's comment was inappropriate and disrespectful towards your marriage, and it's concerning that your husband is dismissing your feelings about Fran's behavior. It's not about insecurity, it's about wanting respect in your relationship and home. This has been a pattern through my life. Due to age difference, Fran has always treated me like a kid. I just felt insulted that my mom completely ignored my feelings while making such comments. However, a part of me also has been jealous of Fran because of all the attention she got, and I was the nerdy little weird girl in our family. I'm waiting for Fran to try attempt something with your husband within 3 to 6 months. Also, you need to tell her no more sleepovers or just showing up. And put some clothes on for God's sake. And this is a firm boundary. And no, you don't care if they think you're overreacting, this is how it's going to be. All these comments have me really alarmed. I am going to talk to my husband regarding this. I do not want to be accusatory, but this whole situation has made me really insecure, and I was barely able to sleep last night. I trust him with all my heart, but I really am rethinking all the things Fran has done around him and how she has undermined and belittled my feelings on every occasion. Update 1. The comments really made me paranoid, and I did see everyone's point that James may have just married me because of his crush on Fran. This really shot up my anxiety, and I started snooping around. My husband literally makes me check his phone for new messages when he is not around. So, I knew there was nothing to hide there. However, I was spooked by how my sister always knows when I am not at home, and why James and Fran are always sitting on the same couch when I come home. I tried talking to my husband, and he told me that my feelings were valid. However, he also said that Fran is going through a tough time and refused to say anything bad about my mom and Fran. Last Friday, I went to gym as usual in the evening, and when I came home, Fran was sitting in the living room, while James was cooking dinner. I got a bit angry and asked her what she is doing here. She said had no plans for the night, and she came to hang out with us. It really annoyed me, and I told her that I wanted to spend a quiet weekend with my husband and if she can come some other time. She could see I was upset. She started saying how our mom was just being silly, and I need to let it go since it was just a joke. I told her I did not find it funny, and we got into a fight. She said that I am always an insecure, annoying kid and no wonder no one liked me. It really hurt me, but James stepped in and told Fran that she needs to leave. I have never seen James be so forceful with Fran. Fran muttered some unpleasant things to James, and then left. I was in tears by the end of the whole thing and James was consoling me. I was really upset and spent the night in our room alone. In the morning, I prepared notes on all things I wanted to ask James. Your comments really helped me get my thoughts straight. I know I was being very insecure, but after reading the comments, I really started questioning if James really married me for me, or just because I was Fran's sister and looked like her. People called me Dollar Store Fran in high school. James and I had a long conversation, and I told him my anxieties and insecurities. I told him how it makes me feel that he spends so much time with Fran when she visits us, and they have their own inside jokes. I asked him if he still has feelings for her. He was calm and smiling the whole time. He told me that he will tell me the truth but does not want me to hate him for it later. He said that he knows Fran used him all through their school days, because she knew he liked her. When he went to college, Fran still tried to keep in touch with him, but putting distance between them made him realize how badly she treated him, and he decided to just cut contact with her so that he can work on himself. That was the reason. He rarely visited us when he used to come for holidays and stopped being friends with Fran. I told him that it bothered me that he chose Fran before me and ignored me during our childhood. That was the reason I always had that doubt if I was his second choice. He said that I was 13 when he went to college and if he would have liked me instead of Fran at that age, we would be having a different problem. He told me that when I contacted him, he thought that I must be like Fran and was not very enthusiastic to meet me. However, after we hung out for a few times, he realized I am nothing like Fran. We soon became close, started dating and got married after a few years. He told me that Fran was married by then, and he saw that I always put Fran on the pedestal and would get jealous when Fran posted vacation pictures or the new shiny things her husband bought for her. That was the reason he never told me that he does not like hanging around Fran, as he feels that for me, Fran was always the North Star. He told me that he has always kept his distance from Fran, and she was a non-issue since we would meet her only few times every year. However, after her divorce, he did not know how to act. He said that he was grateful to me for uprooting our lives and moving back to our hometown for his mom's health. He wanted to do the same and take care of my family. When Fran got divorced, he supported her in every way he could for me, even though he realized it meant spending a lot of time with her and listening to her bring up all the memories from high school that he wants to forget. I told him it bothered me that Fran came to our house as often as she does, and generally in evenings when I go to gym. He told me that he also finds it odd that she knows my gym routine and always comes on evenings when I am not at home. However, he told me that he has always kept his distance from her, and if she did anything that would raise an alarm, he would have told me immediately. She just makes him all the old movies or TV shows they watched growing up, and gossips endlessly about their high school friends. He told me I need to trust him, and if I want him to be the bad guy and ask Fran to not visit us often, he can do that for me. However, he knows that I will eventually make up with my mom and Fran and does not want to blame him for being mean to Fran. However, he told me he will not tell Fran what to wear around the house, as it would be creepy if it came from him. I felt I got all the assurance I needed from James, and I will never doubt how amazing of a husband he has been. My mom and Fran visited us on Sunday, and my mom profusely apologized to me. She told me she does not want me to feel bad for her comment and she would never wish anything bad on my marriage. She meant to say that James was a great guy, and she hopes Fran can find someone like him one day. Fran was a bit sour but apologized to us for all the name calling on Friday and told us that it's just her hormones. She said that she likes hanging out with her sister and her best friend, and hence comes to our house. I told her she is welcome to come anytime she wants, but to call ahead of time in case James and I have plans for the evening, and she agreed. I really want to move past this issue, but I do want to put some firm boundaries on when Fran can come to our house and hang out with James alone, as I know it bothers him too. Overall, I feel things are good now. I am glad my worst fears did not come true, but I do feel I need some therapy in order to deal with my insecurities. Update 2. It's been a bit since my last update, and honestly, I'm still recovering from what went down. We've been through a roller coaster of emotions, but somehow, James and I are stronger than ever, and I think I'm finally understanding how to navigate this whole family dynamic. Though, let's just say I've learned a few shocking things about my sister and my mom in the process. First of all, the therapy has been a game changer. I wasn't expecting much at first, but wow, it helped me realize that a lot of my reactions were stemming from childhood baggage and my own self-esteem issues, which I didn't even fully realize were there. I thought I was just reacting to Fran and James's close friendship, but in reality, it was a mix of old family dynamics, feeling less than because I was always in Fran's shadow, and of course, the insecurity that came from all that. So, I've been working through that, and it's been eye-opening. Also, James has been super supportive about me going to therapy, which, as I now know, is a big deal for him since he doesn't like to talk about his emotions much. The fact that he's actively helping me through this is proof enough that he's all in, and I'm so thankful for him. But here's where the plot really thickens. Fran came over again last weekend, unannounced, of course, and this time, she brought something unexpected with her, a new boyfriend. I was a little caught off guard, not because she's dating again, I mean, it's been 2 years since her divorce, but because it was her boyfriend that raised my eyebrows. It turns out, this guy is someone James and Fran used to know from high school. No, not just a random guy from their high school years, the guy James was completely obsessed with when he was younger. Like, the one Fran dumped for no reason, then led on for years before she met her ex-husband. So you can imagine, I'm sitting there trying not to do a double take when Fran introduces him, all this is Tim, my new boyfriend, and then casually mentions how he and James used to fight over her attention back in the day. You could literally see the tension in James's face. His smile faltered, but he did his best to play it cool. My heart was pounding because I knew there was a lot unsaid between them, and the entire atmosphere felt a little off. James was polite, sure, but he was also visibly uncomfortable. So, I did what I thought was best, I steered the conversation away from high school nostalgia and tried to make everyone feel at ease. But let me tell you, Fran and Tim weren't exactly the best at keeping it casual. They kept looking at each other with this knowing look, like they shared some secret from the past. It was honestly pretty weird. Later, when Tim went to use the bathroom, James turned to me and whispered, "I really don't like him being here. It's messing with my head." My heart broke for him because I could see how hard this was for him. He wasn't upset about me or our relationship, he was just triggered by being in the same room with someone who brought back memories of a time he'd wanted to forget. And honestly, I understood. So, I quietly told him we should go out for a bit. We didn't make a big deal of it, but I could see my mom was starting to notice the tension. Fast forward a few days, and I have to admit, I had a major conversation with Fran. She and I were alone, and I asked her point blank, "Why did you invite Tim over? Do you think that's appropriate, considering everything that happened between you two?" Fran was a little taken aback but admitted that she didn't realize how uncomfortable it would make James. She said, "I didn't mean for it to cause a problem. He's just someone I've always had a connection with, and I didn't think it would be a big deal." I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told her, "You really didn't think it would be a big deal? You're bringing the one guy into our home who had a huge impact on James's teenage years, and you're acting like it's all casual? I'm not okay with that." The tension between us was thick, and she got defensive, but I made it clear that we needed to respect boundaries, both hers and James's. She apologized, but it was a strained one. She didn't fully understand, but I made it clear that if she wanted to hang out with James, she needed to stop bringing up their high school drama and focus on the present. Honestly, that whole situation left me feeling conflicted. It was a reminder that Fran doesn't always take other people's feelings into account when she gets nostalgic or excited, but at least we had that tough conversation, and for the first time in years, it felt like we were being real with each other. Now, things are much better with James and me. We've definitely grown closer because of everything that's happened, and he's been amazing about setting boundaries with Fran. He even told her, "If you want to come over, just text first and make sure it's a good time." I can't keep accommodating last-minute visits, especially with everything going on, and I was honestly proud of him for saying that. We also agreed that any further visits from Fran need to be more planned out so that we're both comfortable. It's a small but important step toward establishing more boundaries in our relationship and with my family. To be fair, Fran's visits have slowed down a lot since then, and I think she's finally starting to understand that maybe her casual approach to our home life isn't working anymore, but she's still Fran, she still brings chaos in her wake. So we'll see how long this peace lasts. James and I also started spending more one-on-one time together, just us two, without any family interference. It's been so refreshing to reconnect in that way, and I'm reminded of why I married him in the first place. He's genuinely the most supportive and patient partner I could ask for, and I'm lucky to have him by my side. So, to sum up, things are better, but I'm not going to act like everything is suddenly perfect. We've definitely learned some lessons, but there's still a long way to go. The main thing I've learned is that boundaries need to be firm, both with family and with ourselves. If you don't set them, things can get way more complicated than they need to be. Thanks again for all your support and advice. It's been a wild ride, but I'm finally starting to feel like I have control over my own emotions, and that I'm not the insecure kid anymore. And to those of you who thought Fran would make a move on James, I still don't think it'll happen. She's a lot of things, but I think she's finally starting to realize that her history with James is exactly that, history. And I'm okay with that now. Update 3. Things have taken some serious turns since the last post, and I'm honestly not sure how to process it all. It feels like every time I think we're on the path to healing, something else comes up, and this time, it's like we're back at square one, but with a much bigger mess. Let me rewind a bit. So, after my last update, I thought we were all starting to find our groove. The boundaries with Fran were set, James and I were doing better, and my anxiety was under control. But just when I thought I had everything figured out, Fran pulled the most unexpected stunt. A few weeks ago, Fran started acting weird. Like, really weird. She stopped coming over as much, which, to be honest, I thought was a relief at first, but then things took a strange turn. I started getting these cryptic texts from her. At first, it was subtle, stuff like, "I need to talk to you about something important and I've been thinking about everything that's happened." Naturally, I was nervous because, well, Fran's track record with me isn't exactly stellar, but I tried to keep an open mind. I finally agreed to meet her for coffee, and that's when it all went down. She straight up confessed that she had been in love with James for years. Now, let me be clear, I've always known she had a crush on him back in high school, but I didn't realize it was this deep. She said that her marriage fell apart because she was never really over him and that, deep down, she always thought she had a shot with him. She admitted that she'd been waiting for the right moment to tell me. Yes, you heard that right. She said she was waiting for me to be emotionally distant enough from James so that she could swoop in. I was floored. I don't even know what I was feeling in that moment, angry, betrayed, heartbroken. All of the above. But as she kept talking, it became clear that this wasn't just about James. It was about me and everything that had happened between us. She said she felt like she had always been my shadow, but now that she had been through her divorce and was struggling financially, she thought she deserved a shot at the better life I had, a life with James, of course. I don't even know how to respond to this, so I just sat there in stunned silence. It felt like everything I'd tried to build with James was crumbling. And that's when Fran dropped the bombshell. She said she was planning on telling James how she felt. She wasn't going to keep it a secret anymore, and she wasn't going to wait around for me to give her permission to pursue him. She even told me that she had been testing the waters by spending more time with him alone at our house, trying to gauge if there was any spark left between them. I almost lost it right there. The anger I felt toward her was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. But as much as I wanted to lash out, I knew I had to keep it together, for the sake of my marriage, and honestly, for my own peace of mind. So, I did the hardest thing. I left the coffee shop, drove straight home, and immediately confronted James. When he walked through the door that evening, I didn't waste a second. I told him everything Fran had said, how she admitted to being in love with him, how she planned to tell him, and how she'd been testing the waters while I was gone. I thought he would be shocked. I thought he would be defensive. But no, his face went pale, and he said, "I knew she was up to something." And here's where the plot takes another insane twist. James confessed that Fran had been hinting at her feelings for him for the past few months. He said that whenever I wasn't around, Fran would make comments about how she always felt something for him, how she regretted not dating him, and even said that things would have been so different if they had been together instead of her ex-husband. At first, James didn't take it seriously. But when she started showing up more often, making subtle moves to get closer to him, it started getting too much. And he didn't know how to tell me without causing a major conflict. The fact that James had been keeping this from me. I can't even describe the pain I felt. I felt betrayed, not just by Fran, but by James too. I thought we were beyond this. I thought we had an understanding. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of reacting with anger, I felt this overwhelming sense of clarity. I had to set boundaries, not just for Fran, but for James too. I told him, "You need to be upfront with her. No more passive comments or avoiding the issue. If she says anything else like that to you, you need to shut it down immediately. We need to be a team in this, and I'm not going to let her get away with this anymore." James agreed, but he was also visibly shaken by the whole thing. He said he hadn't realized how much Fran's actions had affected me, and he promised he would have a serious talk with her. But here's the kicker, he also told me that he wanted to protect me from the hurt he knew this would cause, which is why he hadn't brought it up before. And that's when I realized, he wasn't hiding this from me because he was interested in Fran. He was hiding it to avoid more conflict between us. Which, in a way, made me feel even worse. So, here we are, dealing with this mess. James is preparing to have a serious conversation with Fran, not about her feelings for him, but about her overall behavior. He's going to lay down some hard boundaries and tell her that if she wants to continue any relationship with us, it has to be respectful and appropriate. As for me, I'm still processing everything. I'm hurt, confused, and honestly, a little paranoid. But I'm also trying to focus on what I can control, my relationship with James. I trust him. I really do. But this has rocked me to my core. Update 4. So, after the bombshell that Fran had been harboring feelings for James and my intense conversation with him, we thought we were starting to get things back on track. James had promised to speak with Fran and put an end to any of her lingering hopes, and I'd been taking the time to focus on myself, therapy, self-care, etc. I honestly thought that after the serious conversation we'd had, we could all move forward. I was cautiously optimistic. But, of course, Fran being Fran had other plans. It all started when James and I went out for a rare night away, just the two of us. We had an evening planned, dinner, a little dancing, some much needed time alone, and it felt like things were finally normal. You know, like the way it was before everything went sideways. But when we got home that night, there was a message from Fran on our answering machine. And trust me, this wasn't just a "hey, I was thinking about you" kind of message. Oh no. The message was a full-on confession. Fran had left a voicemail for James. In it, she said, and I'm not exaggerating, that she had been thinking about the possibilities between them and couldn't stop imagining what it would be like if they were together instead of me. She said that she was confused and conflicted, but she knew that they were meant to be together. And here's the kicker, she said she was willing to fight for James, no matter what it took, and that I was just in the way. I'm not going to lie, I was shaking when I heard this. James and I were both standing there in stunned silence. After everything, after all the talks we had, this is what Fran had done? And to make matters worse, she'd left the voicemail while we were away. She was clearly waiting for us to be gone so she could send that message without the risk of me overhearing it. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what happened next. The next morning, I was furious. I confronted James about the voicemail, and he was just as upset as I was. He didn't know what to say, but I could tell he was hurt and equally as confused by Fran's actions. He said he had absolutely no interest in her and was furious that she would go this far. However, when we went to confront Fran about the voicemail, things took a turn. She didn't seem remotely apologetic. In fact, she seemed almost entitled to her feelings, like she was owed something. She said that she had been waiting for the right time to tell James how she felt, and now that she knew I was distracted by my insecurities, she thought it was finally the right moment. She even went so far as to say that she was the one who should have been James's wife, not me. She was the one who had always been the better choice, and I didn't deserve him because I was just too insecure. She essentially tried to gaslight me into thinking I was the one who had ruined everything. I couldn't believe my ears. I was in tears by the end of the conversation. I couldn't believe how manipulative and hurtful she was being. But here's where things get even more twisted. James, who had been standing by me this entire time, suddenly snapped. He said he was done with her behavior, that he was no longer going to tolerate it, and that if she couldn't respect boundaries, she would have no place in our lives anymore. He told her to stay away from us, and if she ever tried to contact him like that again, it would be over for good. It was honestly the most empowering moment I've ever seen. James stood up for me in a way I never expected. He was firm, unapologetic, and didn't let Fran's manipulation get to him. Fran was furious. She didn't expect him to respond that way. She tried to guilt trip him, saying things like, "You've always been so blind, and I can't believe you're throwing away everything we've had." But James was unshaken. He turned to me after the conversation and said, "This is over. I don't want anything more to do with her. It's just you and me now." That was the moment I realized just how far Fran was willing to go. She wasn't just trying to get James back, she was trying to destroy my marriage and ruin everything we had worked so hard for. And to make matters worse, she didn't even seem to care that she had hurt me. Since then, we've gone no contact with Fran. James blocked her on all social media and messaging apps, and I made it clear to my mom that I was no longer comfortable having Fran over at the house without serious boundaries. My mom has been mostly understanding, but there have been some tense moments. She doesn't like that we've cut Fran off, but she's slowly realizing how manipulative her behavior was. As for me, I'm still processing. I've been talking to my therapist a lot about how this whole situation has affected my mental health. It's hard to believe that the person I once looked up to, my sister, would go so far to try to tear down everything I've built. I still feel hurt and betrayed, but I'm also trying to take it one step at a time. James and I are closer than ever. Our communication has improved, and we're stronger as a couple than I ever thought possible. We're healing from this, and I know we'll make it through, no matter what. But Fran? She's out of our lives for good.